1:37 a.m., dark room, phone light on your face. One more video. You can scroll for hours, but you can't study for 20 minutes. So you tell yourself, I'm lazy. But that's probably not true. Your brain isn't broken. It's responding to design. Social media gives you instant, unpredictable rewards. Studying gives you delayed, predictable ones. Your brain prefers what feels immediate. Not because you lack discipline, but because it's wired to prioritize short-term signals over distant outcomes. So this isn't a motivation problem, it's a system problem. And if you understand the system, you can redesign it. This isn't about pushing yourself harder. It's not about extreme discipline. It's not about just try harder. It's about understanding what your brain actually reacts to. In the next few minutes, we'll break down why social media captures your attention so easily, why studying feels mentally heavy, and how the same psychological mechanisms behind TikTok's pull can be applied to learning. No hype, no productivity cliches, just structure. Because your brain doesn't respond strongly to long-term goals. It responds to immediate signals. And if you're interested in understanding the hidden systems that shape your behavior and learning how to redesign them, make sure you subscribe. Now let's start with the first mechanism, immediate reward. Immediate reward is simple. Your brain prefers what pays now over what pays later. If you hear a notification sound and check your phone, the reward is instant. A message, a like, a new video. There is no waiting. Now compare that to studying. You read 10 pages, nothing happens. No sound, no signal, no visible progress. The benefit of studying exists, but it lives in the future. An exam score, a job opportunity, long-term skill, and your brain does not prioritize distant rewards as strongly as immediate ones. This bias is well documented in behavioral psychology. It's called temporal discounting. We discount future rewards. We overvalue immediate ones. That's why scrolling wins. But instant reward alone doesn't explain why you keep scrolling long after you intended to stop. For that, we need to talk about dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. It isn't. Dopamine is more accurately described as a motivation or anticipation signal. It rises not when you receive a reward, but when your brain expects one. And here's the key detail. Dopamine spikes strongest when the reward is uncertain. Not guaranteed, uncertain. If you press a button and always receive a reward, dopamine rises at first, then stabilizes. But if you press a button and sometimes receive a reward, sometimes don't, dopamine stays active because your brain is predicting. This is called a variable reward system. Slot machines use it. You pull the lever, you don't know what will happen. That uncertainty keeps you pulling again. Now think about scrolling. You swipe up, you don't know what the next video will be. It could be boring, it could be funny, it could be shocking. That unpredictability keeps your brain engaged. Your thumb becomes the lever. Studying, on the other hand, is predictable. Page 1 leads to page 2. There is no uncertainty, no surprise, low anticipation, low dopamine activation, and that's why it feels flat. So if unpredictability strengthens engagement, the question becomes, can you introduce it into learning? Yes, you can. Instead of studying in long, fixed blocks with a guaranteed break at the end, you can introduce uncertainty. For example, finish one small section, then draw a random reward from a box. Sometimes it's a 5-minute break. Sometimes it's music. Sometimes it's nothing. The key isn't the size of the reward, it's the unpredictability. Your brain becomes curious about what comes next, and curiosity sustains effort longer than obligation ever could. But variable rewards are only part of the system. There is another force that can be even stronger: loss. Humans are wired to avoid losing something more intensely than gaining something new. This principle is called loss aversion. Losing $10 feels worse than finding $10 feels good. That imbalance changes behavior. Apps like Duolingo use this perfectly. They don't just reward you with points, they give you a streak, a visible chain of consecutive days. After 20 days, that streak stops being a number. It becomes effort, and the fear of breaking it becomes motivation. You don't log in because you're inspired. You log in because you don't want to lose what you built. The same logic can apply to studying. Track your progress daily. Make it visible. A calendar, a board, a streak counter. Once the chain grows, protecting it becomes easier than starting from zero. But even with streaks and rewards, there's still one major barrier: starting. Starting feels heavy for a reason. When you think, I need to study for 3 hours, your brain doesn't see a plan, it sees effort, uncertainty, energy cost. Inside your brain, a structure called the amygdala helps detect potential threats. Not physical danger, but anything that looks demanding or overwhelming. Large, vague tasks trigger resistance. That resistance feels like laziness, but it's not. It's avoidance of perceived cost. The solution isn't forcing yourself harder, it's shrinking the entry point. Instead of saying, I will study for 3 hours, say, I will read 1 sentence. 1 sentence does not trigger alarm. 1 sentence feels manageable. And once you begin, something interesting happens. Your brain dislikes unfinished tasks. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. Once you start, you're more likely to continue, simply because your mind wants closure. Momentum doesn't come from motivation. It comes from reducing friction. But starting is only half the battle. To keep going, your brain needs one more thing: feedback. Your brain is highly sensitive to feedback. When you play a game, you see your score immediately. When you post something online, reactions appear within seconds. Action, response, clear, immediate. But when you study passively, nothing responds. You read a page, you highlight a sentence, you move on. There is no signal that anything changed. And without feedback, the brain disengages. This is why passive reading feels draining. Your brain prefers closed loops. Question, answer, correction. Instead of reading 10 pages silently, pause and test yourself. Close the book, ask one question, answer it, check it immediately. Right or wrong, you get feedback. That signal matters. Each correct answer becomes a micro reward. Each mistake becomes adjustment. Learning turns into short, repeatable cycles. Now it feels active, not static. Now step back and look at the pattern. Social media doesn't win because it's more meaningful. It wins because it's structured better. Instant reward, uncertain reward, visible streaks, low entry barrier, immediate feedback. It's not motivation, it's engineering. And here's the shift. You don't need more discipline. You need better design. If you combine small starting steps, variable rewards, daily streak tracking, and active feedback loops, studying stops feeling like force. It becomes a system. Your brain isn't fighting you. It's responding to signals. When the signals change, behavior changes. Dopamine itself is neutral. It doesn't care whether you scroll or learn. It responds to structure. So the real question isn't, how do I push myself harder? It's, how do I design my environment so pushing becomes unnecessary? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot out-discipline a system that was designed to capture attention. Social media platforms are built by teams of engineers and behavioral scientists. They test colors, sounds, timing, reward intervals. Everything is optimized to keep you engaged just a little longer. So if you try to fight that system using pure willpower, you will eventually lose. Not because you're weak, but because you're playing the wrong game. Your brain doesn't respond strongly to goals like, I want better grades, I want a better future. It responds to immediate signals, small wins, visible progress, clear feedback. The mechanism itself is neutral. Dopamine does not care whether you are consuming content or building skill. It reacts to structure, which means you have a choice. You can let external systems shape your habits, or you can design your own. And that design does not need to be complicated. Start small, track visibly, test actively, introduce uncertainty, work with your brain instead of against it. If you want more breakdowns of the hidden system shaping your behavior, subscribe. Because understanding how your brain works is not just interesting, it's leverage. Your brain is not your enemy. It's a machine responding to inputs. The only question is, who is designing those inputs?